only problem with starting with Not Loose, though, is it's all downhill from here.
You know, that may be true. I don't know. We'll see.
Thank you, Contagion.
Yeah, thank you, Contagion. We've got Skin Deep by Dex. I've never even heard of Dexcore. Let's just do Knocked Loose. I'm tired of talking. Let's go.
Do it.
All right, so if you've watched the channel before, you know how I do reactions. So like we're gonna go ahead and start on it. Now I might keep boo yourself. So I might keep it a little bit shorter. But you know, one thing that I really love about Knocked Loose, and I think this is true for a lot of us, is Bryan Garris. And it's kind of funny because I wasn't a big Knocked Loose fan when I first heard them, and it's mostly because I wasn't really just listening to like this genre, but I didn't know that some people were really not a fan of Bryan's voice for a while. And when I found that out, I was like, what? That's the best part. I was like, what are you talking about? Right. And his technique is really interesting. You know, it's kind of funny. The first reaction I did about Bryan's voice, I wasn't so sure about the safety of his technique. And I've since changed my mind on that. And for a while, I considered taking the video down because I was like, I think the information in this wasn't maybe the best. But I'm like, you know, let's keep it up. Let's keep it up. People can see that, you know, the things change. But one thing that's really interesting about his voice is I've heard people approach it from a false chord perspective and a fry perspective, right? I've seen like people online like How to Scream Like Bryan Garris. They start with a fry and they climb up and they reach that space. Right, and I've seen people start with a false chord and they climb up and they reach that space. So when we're talking about, you know, yo, we got some super chats coming in. We might have opened up the we might have opened things up a little too crazy. Well, thank you all. We'll plop it into the chat or into the list here, but. One thing that's really important, I think, when we're thinking about these pitched high vocals, like these pitched high, well, really any sort of pitched scream, is it's going to be a lot more of like your fingerprint, right? So when we reach, especially when we're screaming in this place, because what he has is he has distortion on top of like this, on top of like a head voice space. Yay, ba-ba-sa-ba-ba-ba! Right? He's got that going on. And in doing so, when we get up there, oftentimes when I'm working with students to do this, we just find whatever type of distortion is the most comfortable for them. Fry, false chord, doesn't matter. And then as we slowly enter that space, we let the voice kind of add the distortion that it wants to. This is, you know, we always hear from vocal coaches, and it's true, you know, your voice is your own. You're not going to sound like everybody. And this is maybe the most important area, in my opinion, to really think about that. This is going to sound a lot like you, and it's important to relax the throat and let it distort in whatever way it wants. Also, shout out to, I think it was the bassist for those like sick false chord growls. Love that. Let's keep going.
From that side, I can hear their call. Whether I am part of God.
Ooh, yo, it's gonna be good. Quigs, what do you think? Just kidding. Shut up.
No.
I didn't know he could do that. What the hell? Does he do that?
It's fucking sick.
Quig, does he do that regularly? Holy cow.
He's definitely expanding like his vocal repertoire. I mean, like what it would normally be is that on record he would mainly do his like main techniques, and then live he would throw in kind of more kind of false chordy stuff and lows and stuff like that. But on the new, as they record more and more, he's starting to throw more of it into the actual music. I also just want to say, because this is kind of my area of expertise, I really like the simplicity of this video. The lighting and the editing, like in that kind of naturalistic location, is like at night is like very cool. Like
yeah.
And the editing, the video is edited, especially in certain parts, it's like edited perfectly to the pace of the music. It's like boom, 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 boom. I love great editing.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm not used to doing these with anybody else live.
That's the end. I know. Sorry. Yeah,
I'm not used to sharing the mic.
Listen, I'm not gonna step on your toes and talk about. Well, the thing with false chord. It's just that's kind of my area of expertise. But anyway, yeah, you go ahead.
The interesting thing is, so some people in the chat are saying, also no, I don't give in-person lessons. My apologies. I'm a hermit. But
you also have a 1-year-old.
Yeah, I got a 1-year-old too. The interesting thing is, so I've heard him do those gutturals before. I've never seen Knocked Loose live. Well, that's not true. We caught like 5 minutes of their set at Blue Ridge before we left because it started raining, although it turned out to be fine that day. But my point is, I've seen it in videos, but that was something totally different, right? Well, maybe it's just me, but it sounded different. That sounded like an inhale. Somebody in the chat pointed out it sounded like an inhale, and I think it sounded like an inhale too. Now I don't really do a lot of inhales, so I'm not very good at them. But let me see what we got here. Something like that. But whoa, Mark did inhales on to stream. This is actually a really interesting time for us to talk about inhales, right? And kind of my opinion on them. Because I know it's really common, like in metal vocal circles, like whenever anybody mentions inhales, everybody does their mandatory chime in. Inhale's bad, right? My actual opinion on inhales is I'm not so sure. I've done a lot of scouring of the internet, and I can't find any real studies talking about that. Talking about inhales done in that way. The only thing I've ever been able to find is about like inhaled phonation is an article about this thing that I believe they do in like Norway, where like sometimes when they're talking and they want to agree or say yes, they'll be like what, something like that. That's not the same thing at all. What we have here almost sounds like a fry brought inward. So in the absence of any like really good literature, it's hard for me to say fully yes they're bad or yes they're good. The only thing I can really rely on is the fact that there are vocalists who have been doing inhales for like 20 years, right? And they're fine. It does make sense to me that they could potentially be a little bit more risky because we're pressing our vocal cords together and we're pulling them the opposite direction with an airflow. So just from what we know about the voice on a more general scale, not like targeted studies towards inhales, but a general scale, it is pulling the vocal folds in a way that they're not like quote unquote meant to go. So for that reason, I don't teach them, mainly because I'm not confident enough in their safety, but I'm also not willing to say like they're 100% bad. I'm sure of it, but also I just suck at them. I'm terrible at them. But it sounded sick. It might have been an exhaled fry with like a really closed vocal tract. It's possible, but it sounded inhale to me. The main thing I look for when I'm trying to hear if something is an inhale is the onset. Right, and you can kind of hear the difference, and I'll show you what again. My inhales suck, but like you're gonna hear that inward, like a, like you can hear that inward breath, right? And I felt like I kind of heard it there, but I don't know.
This is when Mark breaks his voice. Just
Sayonara.
Demonstrating, going inhales may be okay, and it's just anyway. No.
and then that's it. Let's finish it out though. This is cool. This is sick.
Dial it back. Let's hear that one more time.
Okay, yeah, we can hear that one more time. Yeah, let's listen to that onset. You listen to the onset and tell me.
Dude, look at that. in the
Oh,
YouTube.
yeah.
Look at how many people look at that,
Yeah,
watch that section the most.
That's the most watched section right there. That huge peak.
Yeah.
Put in the chat what you think. Do you think this is an inhale or do you think this is an exhale fry? Don't tell me it's a false chord because I don't want to hear it. That's all I'm saying. Here we go. Yeah, it's an inhale. Yeah, that is nuts. What is it about Knocked Loose that they're just like the kings of callouts? Like there's just something about you know what I think it is? And Quigs, you can comment on this. I think one thing that helps is that their lyrics are actually good.
Yo, 100%. Like
I'm saying.
Dude, still one of my favorite endings to a song ever is still the end of Mistakes Like Fractures when he's like, I followed the rabbit and I found my fucking ending.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like, and,
it's an amazing line.
Yeah. But dude, also like if any of you watch the streams, you know how much I hate swearing in songs that isn't earned. That earns it. By the way, can I just give a shout out? Speaking of call outs, Reptar John just mentioned one of my favorite vocalists and favorite bands of all time. Rue from Enter Shikari, Rue Reynolds, has been doing inhales at certain points for over 20 years. Very true. Pretty sure our friend Ollie from Archspire is also known to do some inhales from time to time, and
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard
that.
Yeah,
and he's so. I think like with most things in moderation. Like
no, go ahead.
Go on. No.
You know my main irritation about inhales? I'll tell you my main irritation is that if a vocalist does one inhale on one song, they're automatically a bad vocalist. They're a bad vocalist. Ugh. You know, and it's like, homie, we're really going to reduce a person's entire skill set because they did one thing on one album? You know what? I'll throw myself on the chopping block. In the song Beyond the Passage of Embers, in Liminal Right, I intentionally did some very overexerted screams because I just wanted that sound effect. I wouldn't do them that way live, right? But I was like, I'm telling a story here. And so I did. And so at the end, where I'm just basically screaming as loud as I can, yeah, technically that's bad technique. Does that make me a bad vocalist? I don't know. You let me know. We got we'll find out.
I think it does, but I also have always thought you're a bad vocalist.
True.
Anyway,
I want to talk to people real quick before we move on about how you can kind of see. We got to learn to dance. I want to talk to people about how you can start to play around with distortion in a higher space. Right. One thing, after having taught vocals for quite a long time, one thing that I've kind of come to realize and come to think, especially when you want to do some stuff like Knocked Loose, is that sometimes it's less about exercises and more about exploration. And I want to explain to you what I mean by that. So with like an exercise, I like to think of exercise as like Super Mario, right? I like to think of an exercise as like Sonic the Hedgehog, right? You're on this side of the screen. Well, from your orientation, you're on this side of the screen and you go that way. You follow these steps, and these steps are meant to reveal things to you or to train certain muscles or to train certain like observations, right? So some vocal exercises are built specifically to stretch and lengthen the vocal folds. Some vocal exercises are built to help you feel certain resonance placements in your face and things like this. Then there are other games like Skyrim where sure you go through the opening, but then it plops you in the woods, and what do? You go left. You just go left. There you go, right? Where? I mean, yeah, there's a quest log, but who among us is following that? Like nobody, right? And so this brings about 2 points. The first is, as I've said in a lot of videos, this is where I think having a good foundation of some sort of distortion before you play with play with pitch screams is a good idea, right? Because then you've kind of made sure you're safe within that landscape you're exploring. And then 2, sometimes it's better than doing a specific strict exercise, just exploring your voice. So what I would do if I was trying to really like nail, I do a lot of pitch screams, a ton of pitch screams in Kardashev, but they're not really delivered like Bryan at all. Mine are delivered more sad boy, right, versus angry boy. But a lot of the way that I found my way there was just by like playing up and down across my vocal break. This is a common exercise. We've all seen it across the internet. Just doing stuff like this, and then I just sort of started gently adding the distortion that I'm comfortable with, which, as you all know, is primarily false chord. So just kind of doing some stuff like this. Hey, my name is Mark. You know what I'm going to say. And I like pizza. I like. And from that space, your goal is comfort and control. If you can get distortion existing in the space that you want it to, right? And that's primarily what I help people do, find that space and get distortion happening comfortably there. Well, then from that point, boom, you start following the comfort. And if you follow the comfort, maybe a little fry will sort of peek out on its own. But you'll find that you start to sound good because you're doing what your body is shaped to do versus forcing your body to do something it may not be ready to do yet, if that makes any sense. But, all that being said, absolute banger from Knocked Loose. That a lot of times bands release new music and I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's going to make my top 5, but that was sick. I loved that song. How do you think that falls in their discography, Quigs?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the direction they keep going. Obviously, it's very difficult for me because I have such love for some of the early material that, like, even though the new material is still killer, like, I'm still like, I've spent hundreds of hours listening to like laugh tracks and Sound Called with Mistakes and Fractures is like blue something, but yeah. But yeah, it sounds sick.